And we're back. I have a pause, don't worry. I saw that they had just came back, Flash fan. Thank you, though. And hey, again, long time no see. Got to bite to eat. I hope you all did too. Let me put this up here. I always pause at the best part. Alrighty. It is time for Lori Vallow's opening statements. I'm ready. Of course, there's no sound yet. Chicken salad. I'm going to have that tomorrow, Flash fan.
All right, we're on the record. State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell. The attorneys are present, the defendant's present, the jury is not present. We ready to bring in the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's bring in the jury.
You had some pistachios. Nice. I tuned out, Flashman. What'd you think? I'm glad it wasn't any longer. I was paying more attention talking about Menards. I don't know what she said once that happened. All I could think of was rebates. You yawned. Maybe she'll be good. Maybe she'll do well. Maybe. Chance, there's hope. Ain't like that much. No, we cannot.
All rise for the jury.
Hello, Adair. Good afternoon or evening. Close enough.
All right, the jury is now present. Please be seated. All right, the defendant can proceed with her opening statement.
All right, here we go. That's what I said.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have been charged with a crime, a serious crime. And the only question here is, did I commit this crime? Conspiracy. Conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime. Okay, so you see, okay. There has to be an agreement. There has to be a plan. The evidence in this case will show that Charles Vallow and I got married in February 2006. It will show that it was my fourth marriage and Charles' third marriage. At that time, we each had 2 children. I had Colby, who was 9, and Tylee, who was 3. Charles had Cole, who was also 9, and Zach, who was 7. The evidence will show that our family moved from Austin, Texas to Chandler, Arizona in 2009. The evidence will show that Charles and I adopted our great-nephew, JJ, who was born in 2012. It will also show that Charles and I were married for over 13 years and were raising 5 children. The evidence will show that I was a licensed cosmetologist and worked as a hairstylist for 20 years while we lived in Austin, Texas. The evidence will show that Charles was a licensed life insurance salesman and worked as an independent contractor, selling life insurance policies and annuities, and owned his own business. The evidence will show that Charles and I purchased life insurance policies early in our marriage, and Charles had them issued to the maximum amount possible to each of us. The evidence will show that Charles was 17 years older than me, and that because of Charles' age and an issue that he had with high blood pressure, the maximum amount of life insurance that could be approved for Charles was $1 million. The maximum amount of life insurance that I could be approved for because of my age and my health was $2 million. The evidence will show that throughout our 13-year marriage, that we always had life insurance policies. When a 10-year policy lapsed, Charles would shop for another company who would approve us for the maximum amount of life insurance. The evidence will show that this was Charles' job. This is what he did. I helped him in this business, and this is what he did. The evidence will show that in 2016, Charles repurchased a new $2 million life insurance policy on me, and he was the sole beneficiary. The evidence will show that Charles and I had a happy marriage for 13 years, that he was, in fact, a baseball player, and that he played high school, college ball, and AAA ball, and that he was, in fact, a left-handed pitcher, a southpaw, they call him, but he was a right-handed batter, as could be attested to by anybody who knew Charles well and his high school baseball coach, Greg Davis. The evidence will show that Tylee was, and in 2014, our family moved from Chandler, Arizona to Kauai, Hawaii. We lived there for 3.5 years and returned to Chandler in 2017. The evidence will show that Tylee was 3 years old when Charles and I got married, and that when she became a teenager, the relationship between Tylee and her stepfather, Charles, became so difficult that Tylee and Charles had to seek a therapist, a family therapist, to stop them from fighting. The evidence will show that together, Charles and Tylee met with this therapist after we moved back to the mainland in 2017. The evidence will show that in April of 2018, Tylee's biological father passed away from a heart attack. And at that time, Charles called Social Security and made an appointment at the Social Security
I'm going to
office.
object to hearsay.
Sustained.
It will show that we did get Social Security for Tylee for her deceased father until she was 18 years old, and she was 15 years old at the time. The evidence will show that Charles and Tylee's fighting increased greatly in January of 2019 when Charles and I temporarily separated. The evidence will show that several people witnessed these terrible arguments between Tylee and Charles that increased to physical in 2019. Charles and Tylee had major increasing arguments, 2 in February of 2019, 1 of March in 2019, which was captured on video, 1 in May of 2019, 1 in June of 2019, and then the worst of all in July 2019. The evidence will show that in March of 2019, Charles pulled JJ out of his special school and moved him to Houston, Texas, while we were temporarily separated. Tylee and I then joined Charles and JJ in Texas in April 2019 to reconcile. The evidence will show that JJ was diagnosed with severe autism when he was 3 years old while we lived in Hawaii. The evidence will show that for 2 years, JJ was attending a school in Gilbert, Arizona, a special school for children with autism. It's called Lawrence Life Academy. The evidence will show that in June of 2019, in JJ's best interest, Tylee, JJ, and I moved back to Chandler, Arizona to re-enroll JJ back in Lawrence Life Academy since he had a difficult time with the Houston, Texas schools with no services for his autism. The evidence will show that Charles and I agreed it was in JJ's best interest to be in school where more services were available to him, so Charles and I rented a house here in Chandler. On the day in question, July 11th, 2019, Charles and I were renting 2 houses, one in Houston, Texas, where he mainly resided, and one in Chandler, Arizona, where I resided with our 2 minor children, Tylee and JJ. By this time, our 3 older boys, Colby, Cole, and Zach, were adults and not living at home any longer. The evidence will show that during the months of June and July, that my husband, Charles Vallow, began to send me threatening text messages. These messages were seen by my sister Summer, and that worried her. The evidence will show that Charles insisted on flying into Phoenix on July 10th, as we've heard from the state. The evidence will show that I advised Charles that he could not stay with us at the Chandler house because he could not get along with Tylee, and I did not want them to get into another fight like they had 3 weeks prior. The evidence will show that it was ultimately decided between Charles and I on text messages that he would stay in a hotel because he traveled for business all the time and stayed in hotels all the time, and that I would book it for him since I worked for him and booked all of his travel. The evidence will show that Charles did in fact fly into Phoenix on Wednesday, July 10th, and stayed in the hotel that I booked for him. The evidence will show that Charles paid to fly my brother Adam Cox into Phoenix from Kansas on the same day, Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles planned to come to our Chandler home and pick up JJ and drive him to school on Thursday morning, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will also show you that Lauren's Life Academy opens its gates at 8:25 a.m. in the morning. And the evidence will show that Charles showed up at our Chandler residence around 7:30 in the rental car I booked for him on the morning of Thursday, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles began texting with my brother, Adam Cox, before he entered our residence, and that Charles and Adam were discussing in their text communications that my other brother, Alex Cox, was at the residence. The evidence will show that on the morning of July 11th, that Tylee was asleep in her room and my brother Alex was asleep in the guest room. The evidence will show that when Charles entered the house, only JJ and I were awake and present. The evidence will show that after we put JJ in the rental car, that Charles came back into the residence to receive his phone, leaving JJ in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running. He was 7 years old. The evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. The evidence will show that Charles' screaming woke up Tylee and Alex. The evidence will show that Tylee came out of her room with a bat to protect me, her mother, from her stepfather, Charles Vallow. The evidence will show that Tylee and Charles fought over the bat, and that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground. And Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat. The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming. The evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that Tylee, who was on the ground, was lifted up by me and sent outside to get away from the struggle and to protect JJ, who was still in the running car, in the rental car in the driveway. The evidence will show that after this struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I ran away from him into the kitchen. The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. The evidence will show that Tylee and I had both run outside without shoes. The evidence will show that JJ was still in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running and struggling to get out of the car. Tylee was trying to keep him in. The evidence will show that Tylee and I got into the rental car with JJ and drove away. The evidence will show you that I drove the children away from the residence towards JJ's school. grab a tissue?
Yep.
The evidence will show that I drove the children through the Burger King drive-through that Charles had promised JJ. The evidence will show that we continued to drive towards JJ's school and that the gate was not yet open at JJ's school. So we drove a block west of the school to a Walgreens where I ran in to purchase flip-flops for Tylee and myself so that we could walk JJ into school on the hot pavement. The evidence will show that Tylee and I returned directly to our residence where we met with police in our driveway. The evidence will show that we were spoken to by the Chandler police officers. And the evidence will show that Tylee and I were told by the Chandler police detectives that Charles had passed away. The evidence will show that we were put into a police van and driven to the Chandler Police Department. The evidence will show that Alex was taken by police in a police car to the Chandler Police Department. And that we were all three separated into interrogation rooms and we were each interviewed. The evidence will show that next, Tylee and I were brought back together into a room at the Chandler Police Department and were introduced to a victim's advocate who was very kind to us. The evidence will show that after speaking to the victim's advocate, that Tylee, Alex, and myself were put back into the police van and driven back to our residence. We were directed by the Chandler detectives to take the rental car and return later to the residence after we picked up JJ from school. The evidence will show that we did as instructed by the Chandler detectives. The evidence will show that we drove to Alex's residence where we attended to the wound on the back of his head. The evidence will show that Alex was then contacted by the Chandler detectives to return to the residence so that Alex could walk them through the events that occurred with the detectives at the residence. The evidence will show that Alex, Tylee, and I did return to the residence as instructed. And the evidence will show that Alex entered into the residence with Detective Moffett, but that Tylee and I were met by Detective Inkland in the front yard. The evidence will show that at the time, Detective Inkland asked Tylee and myself if we had Charles' cell phone. Tylee retrieved Charles' cell phone from the rental car and gave it to Detective Inkland at 3:11 p.m. on July 11th, 2019. And at that time, Charles' phone was placed in the custody of Chandler police detectives. The evidence will show that Detective Inkland asked us if we knew the passcode on Charles' phone, which Tylee proceeded to give to Detective Inkland. The evidence will show that Tylee and I left the residence to pick up JJ from school, while Alex remained at the residence with the detectives. The evidence will show that by the time Tylee, JJ, and I returned to the residence, that all police, EMS, CSI, and detectives were gone from the residence and only Alex remained. The evidence will show that the next day, I contacted Chandler police to inform them that Charles' belongings were still at the hotel. I asked the detective if I should go get them, and I was told that they would take care of it. The evidence will show that I asked the detectives, what should we do next? And they directed us that they would contact us in about 3 weeks after their supervisor passed off their reports and Alex could go to the police station and retrieve his gun. The evidence will show that the last thing I heard from Chandler Police Department until June of 2021, 2 years later, when I received a grand jury indictment from them for this alleged crime. The evidence will show that Chandler Police treated this incident as self-defense.
I'm going to object to that.
Objection sustained. The jury should disregard that last statement.
The evidence will show you that my brother, Alex Cox, passed away on December 12th, 2019, almost exactly 5 months to to the day after Charles, my husband, passed away. The evidence will show that Alex passed away from a blood clot in his lung.
Objection again.
I'll sustain the objection. It's not relevant for this matter.
The evidence will show you that I am the only person being charged with this crime.
I would object to the relevance of that.
Sustain.
As the state has mentioned, they're alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime. A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy. Thank you.
All right, the state can call its first witness.
Thank you. If I may go get him.
Well, what'd you guys think? I know that beeping is driving me nuts. I don't know what it didn't beep during the state's opening. If it did, I didn't hear it. It was something. It's a family tragedy. Is that what you call the death of your 2 children? Family tragedy? Well, so far. So far. I think he's probably okay with that. Decent, but still bad. We're just like, let's see if I can L ahead here. And now we don't have sound.
My clerk will swear you in right here.
You were recommended. You were recommended a video about diverticulitis. Well, I'm glad you chose me, Zach. Thank you. It's good to see you. I'm not wearing a Christmas sweater. It's my Nebraska shirt. Oh, the Arizona hat. All right. You have an iron stomach. All right. Well, thank you I'm glad I'm just edging out diverticulitis tonight. Win for me.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
All right, you're gonna have a seat up here.
Sir, would you please tell the jury your name?
My name's Sergeant Erwin Worsbicky. I work for the Chandler Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Chandler Police Department?
June will be 10 years.
Did you have any prior law enforcement experience?
I had 10 years in Illinois.
Back on July 11th of 2019, what were your duties at that time?
I was working as a patrol officer, I believe in beat 18.
And what were your hours?
0600 to 1600.
Is that 6 a.m.?
6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Yes.
Thank you. Were you dispatched to a residence at 5531 South Four Peaks Place in Chandler, Maricopa County, Arizona?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were you dispatched for?
It was a shooting.
Were you the first on the scene when you arrived?
I
What
was,
did you
ma'am.
see? Okay. What were you wearing at the time?
I was in full patrol uniform.
Does the Chandler Police Department back then, did they have body worn camera?
They did.
And can you describe where that was and how that works?
I believe back then I wore it on my left shoulder.
Okay. And How does it get activated?
You have to press a button and it'll turn it on.
All right,
Um,
Flash fan, get it out of the way. Call me a boomer. Thank you. It's been a long day. I am so sorry. Thank you for the milk money, Zach. And I am sorry that I boomed it. It's been a long day. And I said, our little frog has the coof, the vid, whatever. She's not feeling good at all. And I also said Brandon was correct that sometimes Zach is not very nice when he times me out, as he did one time. It wouldn't. Hey, we've been doing this since 11:30. Yes, she did her opening statement. It was okay. It was the evidence will show every other sentence. Every sentence started with the evidence will show. The evidence will show. First witness right here. And I'm not getting into the timeout war this time, Zach. And now I'm going to mute myself again.
Does it normally record audio?
Yes.
And did you have that on and did you activate it when you arrived to this scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there other officers on scene at some point when you got there?
After I arrived, yes.
You're saying it was 1760, so I pulled the printer to get.
What other officers arrived on scene?
Right after I arrived, Officer Krautheim arrived.
Can you describe to us sort of what happened as you get to the scene? How did you guys, you and Officer Krautheim, handle the situation?
When I was getting out of the car, I believe the gentleman that called in was still on the phone, and we advised dispatch to tell him to come out with nothing in his hands except his phone. As he opened up or came out the front door, I started giving him commands. That was what I wanted him to do.
So you're talking with dispatch. Is that the same as 911?
Yeah, it's the same dispatch center.
So is the person who's talking to the 911 person then just relaying information to you?
Yes,
So you're able to tell that person, tell dispatch to tell the person to come out.
yes,
Did you and Officer Krautheim have someone come out?
yes.
Can you describe for us the person's demeanor as they're first exiting?
He was very nonchalant, very compliant with us.
Okay. You said he still had his phone?
Yes,
Do you recall if his other hand was up?
I do not recall.
Do you recall where he came out of from the house?
He came out the front door.
When he exited the house, what did you guys have him do?
I gave him commands to come towards us and then have a seat on the curb.
Okay. So there's just two of you officers still at this point?
Yes.
What did you do at this point?
I decided to go check for anybody that was injured inside and clear the house, make sure there was nobody else in there.
Okay. What did Officer Krautheim do?
I believe he started speaking to the gentleman that we had come out the house.
So he stayed outside
Yes,
and you went into the house?
yes, ma'am.
When you talk about clearing the house, can you tell us what that means? What do you do?
We just wanted to make sure that if anyone needed aid rendered to them, we could render aid to them, or if there are any more suspects in the residence, that we could try to apprehend them.
Does that mean that you walked through the entire house?
I believe so, yes.
And all that's when your body cam is on?
Yes, ma'am.
When you first entered that house, can you describe for us what you saw when you walked in that front door?
Yeah, initially when I walked in, it opened up into like a day room or something like that. And just off to the right, I saw somebody laying on the ground, motionless.
Did you notice anything about that room?
It was empty,
So no furniture?
no furniture. Yeah, it was just an empty room.
The person that you saw to the right, male or female?
Male.
And can you describe how you saw him laying on the ground?
Yeah, he was laying on his back, I believe with both of his hands to his side, motionless. And then I went up over to him to check his pulse.
Is that standard for police to check the welfare of any potential victims?
Yes,
When you checked the pulse, did you find one?
no.
Did you notice anything else about this victim?
Yeah, I noticed that there were 2 apparent gunshot wounds to his chest area, and there was blood pooling in like his kind of like neck collar area.
Did he appear to still be alive to you?
No,
As part of your job, both with your prior experience in Illinois and your experience here in Arizona, have you seen deceased people before?
yes, ma'am.
Did you think this person was dead?
Yes, ma'am.
If you didn't think he was dead, are police trained to do CPR?
Yes, ma'am. We're all certified to,
Would you have
Yeah.
done that if you believed that would have helped him?
absolutely.
So even though a person appears deceased to you, is fire still called out to check on them?
Yes.
Why is that?
They go through their own process and procedures, and I believe they usually give the official time of death.
Did you notice anything else in that room where that male was lying?
I can't think of anything right now, no.
Do you recall seeing any projectiles on the ground near the victim?
Objection, leading.
It's a yes or no question.
I believe I did, yes.
When you walked in the house after you saw this male on the ground, did you continue through the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that to clear it?
Yes.
And will paramedics or fire come in if you haven't cleared the house yet?
Usually no.
So they want to make sure it's okay as well?
Yes.
After you cleared the house, did you, or as you were clearing the house, did you ever locate any weapons?
Yes, I believe we located a firearm in one of the back bedrooms.
Did you touch that in any way?
I don't recall.
Okay. After you cleared the house, did fire enter?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did fire do?
They began to try to render aid to the victim.
By the time fire came in, were other officers now on scene?
Yes.
Were you still wearing and recording with your body cam?
Yes, ma'am.
Does the body cam, you told us that it's on your shoulder. Does it always show where you're looking?
No.
So your eyes or your head can be turned to a different direction than what the camera is actually
Yeah,
showing?
if I was turning talking to the judge, my camera would be facing the crowd.
I want to show you a video. And if I can have my paralegal bring that up and have him identify it. And sir, if you can just look at that and let me know if you recognize that as your body cam minus the audio of it.
Yeah, that's my body cam.
Do you recognize that as you in it?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have previously watched that?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, the state will move to admit exhibit number 2, I believe. exhibit number 2 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
Two is admitted.
And Your Honor, if we may publish it.
You may.
If they show us the body cam, I don't know if it'll beep, but be ready for it just in case it does.
So this is the house you're walking up to, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As you're talking to dispatch?
Yes.
And this is the individual that is coming out that you asked dispatch to have come out?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that Officer Krautheim in the back?
It is.
Are you announcing
Yes, ma'am.
that standard?
Yes.
That where you checked to see if this male had a pulse?
Yes, ma'am.
That the weapon that you told us that you found?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you letting people know on your radio that you found a weapon?
I believe so, yes.
You told us that other officers were arriving?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what we see here happening?
Yes.
And is fire also starting to come in?
I believe they were right behind him, yes.
That you continued to clear the rest of the house?
Yes, ma'am.
So what do we see there?
It appears that the fire is rendering aid to the victim or attempting to.
Were you walking around trying to find identification for the individual on the ground?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to ever find an identification for him?
I was not.
So no wallet laying around,
No.
no ID in his pocket?
I didn't check his pockets, but no, I don't think fire found one.
So you're kind of talking with them to let them know who this is as well?
Yes,
Because they're documenting it.
yes.
And is that the individual who came out with the phone from the house?
Yes, ma'am.
One that dispatch and 911 told to come out?
Yes.
When you were interacting with him there, what was his demeanor like?
He was extremely calm.
You told us that you were looking for the wallet for this individual. Did it seem unusual to you that you couldn't find one?
I wouldn't say it was unusual. I didn't know if he lived there or not, so I just kind of looked around to see if there was anything laying around.
Is this you still trying to see if there's anything in the residence that might be related to that individual?
I think I was just giving Officer Cohen a recap of what I already went and looked through.
I've shown defense counsel or defendant exhibits 3 and 4. I have a paralegal send those up to the officer to review as well. Do you recognize those as sort of screenshots of 2 different views during your body cam footage?
Yes.
State will move to admit exhibits 3 and 4.
Any objection?
No objection.
3 and 4 admitted.
And if I may publish them. So in this photo, when you were looking at it, were you able to see here's where you are checking to see the pulse of this individual?
Yes, ma'am.
And did this also reflect what you had talked about of the blood pooling that had run towards his neck area?
Yes.
Exhibit 4. Is this sort of when we first see you walk back in and we see fire working on the individual?
Yes.
You told us that when that individual who was on the call with 911 came out, that you observed the phone with him. He was kind of holding it.
Yeah.
Did you ever see any other?
I almost forgot to unmute myself again. Thank you, Evil Queen. I appreciate that very, very much. Yes, Flash Fan. I know I'll have to do evening streams. I'm been trying to work it out in my head all day. I'm gonna make it happen and do the other stuff we've already been doing. So I am working on it. Hey, Bri. Good. Glad you made it. We are on our first witness. Not getting to see videos and not hearing any audio. It's exciting. I'm not sure how this is going to take till mid-May, but what they say.
Their phone in the house as you were looking around? Anything obvious laying around?
I don't recall, no. I don't believe I did.
No phone on the ground near the deceased male?
Not that I recall, no.
After you had cleared the house, allowed fire to enter, and other officers were arriving, were you tasked with going out to put up some crime scene tape?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean?
It's just tape that keeps the general public out, keeps the media out, so we have a secure scene and it doesn't get tainted by anybody or anything.
So that included both the house and some of the street.
Yes, ma'am.
Did that sort of end your involvement?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right, cross-examination.
All right, her first cross-examination.
It's Sergeant. Where's Vicky? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I like to get that right. Okay. You said that the individual exiting the house was nonchalant. Is that correct?
I don't know if I used those words, but he seemed very calm. Yes.
Very calm.
Yes.
Is that the same thing to you as nonchalant?
I wouldn't use that word, so I would say he looked very calm and unbothered.
But you said nonchalant a minute ago.
I don't recall saying that.
Okay. Does everyone act the same in a stressful situation that you've experienced? No? Are you qualified to give someone a psychological evaluation?
No.
No. You put your hand on my husband's neck for checking for a pulse, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you did when you first came in?
Yes.
Did you perform CPR?
No,
No. Why not?
because it was apparent to me that he was deceased.
And that's not your protocol
To what?
to perform CPR until fire comes in?
Not if it's going to make it even worse because they had apparent gunshot wounds to the chest.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if I start pumping on his chest, it's going to start spewing blood out of his chest even at a more rapid pace.
So when the 911 operator was telling my brother to do that, that same thing would happen?
All depends on when the call came into dispatch.
But I'm saying if you're doing CPR on someone with a gunshot wound in the chest, on the chest.
Could, yes.
Okay. And you said something else. You said fire gives official time of death. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that time of death? Do you know?
I do not recall.
And you cleared the house before fire came in. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were looking for some kind of identification?
When
Yes.
I cleared the house,
Yes.
I was looking for other potential victims and or suspects.
Okay. But you were told on the phone that no one else was in the house but Alex. Is that correct?
I don't recall if I was told that or not.
Okay. Do you have any crime scene investigation experience?
Just my 20 years of experience as a police officer.
And you said something about, and this is just for me to understand, you said something about the casings being to the left of him or to the right of him?
I didn't say they were to the left or to the right.
Oh, did you say west or east?
No.
Oh, sorry, that was my interpretation. Can you tell me what the weapon was that you found?
It was a handgun.
Was it a 45?
Don't recall.
Okay. Could you tell what direction the bullet came from?
Based off the way the body was laying, I could assume it came from where his feet were at.
Near the feet?
Mhm.
Did you see the projectile that was in the baseboard?
I don't recall if I saw that or not.
You said he did not appear alive. that you already thought that he was deceased. Is that correct? When you entered into the house?
Yes.
What time was that?
I believe I was dispatched to the call at 8:41. So I mean, if I was going to make a guess on what time I walked into the house, I would say I was probably at the residence within 10 minutes,
So around 8:51 perhaps?
possibly, yes.
Okay. And then when fire took over, is that the normal protocol for fire to take over and do the CPR?
Yes,
And so you didn't do CPR, but they did do the CPR. Is that correct?
yes,
On top of the gunshot wound.
yes.
Is that normal protocol?
I don't know what their protocol is.
Okay. I'm just asking because I wouldn't think to do that either. And then you said that you went outside to put up the crime scene tape. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So after you cleared the house, you left and went to the front yard?
Yes,
And then you were there for how long at the residence before you left?
I couldn't give you a time.
Did you stay for a while or was that the end of your job there?
I don't recall. It was a long time ago. I have no idea how long I was actually on scene for.
And who is your direct supervisor?
I
Like-
believe that day was Sergeant Nocella.
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Nocella?
Okay. And what contact did you have with Detective Moffett that day?
I don't know if I had any with him on scene.
Okay, what about Detective England, perhaps?
I may have briefly spoke to her while I was on scene.
Okay, one time, 2 times, 3 times?
I couldn't tell you a number.
Okay. And then when you have to report to your superior before you left the scene?
He was on scene, I would imagine.
Nocella? Is that
Yes.
what you said? Okay. And then you don't know what time you left, but you arrived at approximately 8:51?
Give or take, yes.
And then did you see me arrive at the scene?
I think as I was leaving, yes.
So approximately around the time that I arrived, you were leaving.
I don't know if I left when you arrived, but I was on my way out of the crime scene as far as I know.
Okay. And then you said something about 2 wounds. Is that correct?
Yes,
And how did you see the 2 wounds through the shirt?
just was an observation that I made when I saw him laying on the ground.
So did you see 2 holes in the shirt?
I'm not sure exactly what I saw when I was there, but I could see that there were 2 apparent gunshot wounds to his chest.
And then I'm sure, well, I won't speak for you. So when they began CPR, they did open his shirt. Is that correct?
I have no idea.
Because when you walked by, his shirt was open.
Objection to question.
Yeah, please ask questions only.
Did you discuss this case with Sergeant Nocella?
I don't believe so. I would imagine he was on scene and he got briefed by the detectives.
He got briefed by the detectives? Is that what you
After the
said?
fact, I would imagine, yes.
Okay. And then have you spoken to the case agent on this case? How many times would you say?
Who's the case agent?
Oh, Detective Duncan. That's my
Detective
understanding. Mhm.
I mean, I've spoke to him many times in my career.
Regarding this case, how many times do you think you've spoken to Detective Duncan?
I couldn't even put a number on it. I would say very few.
Very few?
Mhm.
Like, how many would you guess?
I would say maybe 5 times.
5 times. Thank you. And would that be in-person kind of discussions or?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say there were discussions, probably just in passing.
Okay. So how many times have you emailed with Detective Duncan concerning this case?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled, you can answer if you know.
I have no idea.
What about text messages,
No idea.
phone calls?
Ma'am, I have no idea.
Okay. And your report that you wrote about this, about how long after the incident did you make your report?
I was done by the end of my work shift at 4 o'clock.
And then did you ever make any revisions to that report?
I don't believe so.
So you left the scene approximately sometime in the morning, and by 4 o'clock that day you had written your report. Is
Yes,
that correct? And you've never changed anything on your report?
not that I recall, ma'am.
And the report is exactly as you left it when did you review it for this testimony today?
Yes,
And it was exactly the same as when you wrote it at 4 PM on July 11th?
I don't know if I wrote it at 4 PM. It was
Or
done
by 4 p.m.
but It appears to be yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, redirect.
Sergeant, you were asked about the shooter's demeanor. Were you just telling us what you observed?
Yes,
What did you observe?
I just observed him very calm and collected after just shooting somebody.
And that's both seeing him come out as well as having some interaction with him on the curb.
Yes, ma'am.
When a person is been shot and you check for a pulse, and you believe they are deceased, as a police officer, are you supposed to touch the body?
No,
Is the body basically a crime scene?
yes,
Based upon your training and experience, did you believe that the victim was deceased?
yes, ma'am.
Do fire have EKG heart monitors and things that they use to determine if maybe you missed a pulse?
Yes, ma'am.
When you talked about giving CPR, if an individual is now a crime scene, would giving CPR to that deceased person change the crime scene?
Yes,
And so as someone who believed the person was deceased, you did not want to modify or change the crime scene?
correct.
You were asked about the gun. Is the gun part of the crime scene?
Yes,
Were you responsible for processing the crime scene?
no,
Why didn't you go in there and pick it up and start handling it?
because I didn't want to alter where it was laying when he got done using it.
You were asked a lot about when 911 was called, when you were dispatched. This was a few years ago,
Several, yes.
2019.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there something called a CAD report that documents when 911 was called, when you were dispatched, when you arrived, and even when you left?
Yes, ma'am.
Would looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when those events occurred?
Yes,
If I may have my paralegal provide me with a copy of the CAD report.
you want me to?
Starting, does looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when the 911 call was received?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
It was received at 8:36.
Does looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when you were dispatched?
It appears it was dispatched at 8:37.
So your memory of saying 8:50 or so was perhaps incorrect.
Yes,
Was looking at the CAD report indicate when you arrived?
8:43.
So again, that was a little earlier than your memory was.
Yes, ma'am.
And does looking at the CAD report help determine or refresh your recollection as to when you left the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
When was that?
It's 5:31 PM.
As a police officer who is one of the first on scene, do you provide briefing or information to your sergeant or the detectives on scene as to what you saw, observed, and did?
If they ask me directly, yes, somebody will brief them that's on scene.
But you have to provide somebody that information to then provide to the detectives?
Yes.
Why is it done that way?
Because usually a supervisor is going to want to know what's going on and what we did, just so the detectives know exactly what they're walking into.
So for instance, if you had had to move the gun, they would want to know that, right?
Yes,
Or if you had moved the body, they would want to know that too, right?
yes,
And if you had found any evidence, would they want to know that as well?
absolutely.
And so is that what you would have to do that day when you are speaking to sergeant or detectives?
Yes.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Does any member of the jury have a question for this witness? If so, please write it on the provided form. I'm not seeing any questions come down. You can step down, sir. All right, state can call its next witness.
Thank you.
She wasn't horrible. She wasn't
I may go get.
better than Daryl Brooks. And Adair, I agree with you. There's not a good outcome here because she just gets another life sentence. However, so I was telling my husband earlier today, I think this trial is a good thing because I do think she had something to do with this guy's unaliving, and I do think she should be where she's at right now, even if it feels kind of pointless. Stun belts probably aren't any better, Zach. I don't know. I've never had one. It's not my cup of tea. Her little innocent voice is driving me nuts because she's such a monster.
All right, go ahead and have a seat over here to my left.
Oh, she's horrible, Dare. Absolutely horrible. That's why I think
Sir, would
she.
you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Robert Krautheim.
And where do you currently work?
I currently work at the Sandra Day O'Connor Federal Courthouse
Back in 2019, where were you working?
as a Chandler police officer in Chandler, Arizona.
How long did you work for the Chandler Police Department?
25 years.
When did you retire?
About 3 years ago, February.
When you were working there in July of 2019, what were your duties at that time?
I was a patrol officer. I was responding to calls for service.
Okay. And do you recall what your shift was at that time?
It was a day shift. I think I start my shift at 6 and end at 4.
Were you working patrol for Chandler Police Department on July 11th of 2019 at about 8:36 a.m.?
I was.
Were you dispatched to 5531 South Four Peaks Place in Chandler, Maricopa County, Arizona?
Yes.
What were you dispatched for?
A shooting that had just occurred.
Based upon the information that was, well, let me ask you this. When you are arriving to a scene, do you get information relayed to you about this call?
I do.
Why is that?
The call taker is asking the person on the phone what's going on, where it is, who's there, just basic information. And then dispatch relays that information to me as I'm driving to the call for service.
Is that so you have a better idea about what you're walking into?
Yes, it's on a computer, but verbally, the stuff that's really pertinent before I arrive is just verbally done over the air.
So when you were arriving on the scene, did you think this shooting had just occurred?
I did.
When you got to this 5531 South Four Peaks, were there any other officers on scene yet?
Yeah, Officer Wiz was there.
Is that Officer Wiersbe?
Yes, I'm sorry, I apologize.
What were you wearing?
Patrol outfit, basically a patrol uniform, police uniform, body worn camera.
And back then, where was your body-worn camera?
At the time, it was a lipstick camera, so part of it was here, but the camera is actually on my right shoulder.
Okay. And was that on and recording as you sort of arrived on scene and while you were present there?
Yeah, I started recording while I was driving there.
Okay. When you arrived, did you know whether or not the 911 caller was still on the phone?
Yeah, she was still on the phone.
And when you are talking with dispatch, did you arrange to have this person come out, or did Officer Wiersbe do that?
Yes, dispatch advised him to come out of the home without anything and hands up in the air. That's kind of standard.
And did he comply with that?
He did.
What exit did he come out of?
At the front door.
Okay. Can you describe sort of his appearance and demeanor as you observed him coming out of the house?
His clothes were clean. He was calm, not emotional at all. Different than what I would have anticipated.
When he first exited, did you notice any injuries to him?
He was holding, it was a white rag at the time. It was just kind of red and white. He was holding on the back of his head.
When he first exited or later?
As he's coming out of the house.
Did you notice any difficulty walking or talking when you first had contact with him?
No,
Any difficulty sitting or standing?
no,
Did you learn the name of this person?
I did.
What was his name?
Alex Cox.
Did you observe him sweating at all when he first came out?
No,
Any type of jitters?
no,
Any uneven or broken voice as he's talking to you?
no,
At some point, did you notice an injury to him?
I did.
And where was it?
On the back of his head, towards his right side.
And what did you see?
I articulated my written report as about an inch laceration, a small like knot, and it was bleeding a little bit.
Is this Close Encounters of the Third Kind? We're close. Is it close?
If we can fix that.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. It is not me this time. Not me. Just gonna kick cameras out of the courtroom. Thanks a lot, people. Yes, tonight's band practice has been canceled. By the way, whoops, I can't put that up there.
Alex
Mine.
Cox patting or rubbing the back of his head with some sort of rag or paper towel.
Yes,
Without going into what was said, did you talk with him?
I did.
Did you offer him medical treatment?
I did.
Did he ask for medical treatment?
He did not.
Was there anything about his talking with you or actions that made you concerned that you thought you should override that?
I'll tell him, Zach, because I've had questions about this and I've actually asked questions about this. The cop didn't do CPR because of the wound on his chest, and he said it would have made it worse. One, I've always had that question. If you've got a wound that is, and you're pressing down and it's pumping out blood, are you not making the situation worse? And he also didn't do it because he said he already knew he was deceased and now he was a crime scene. Also, when I was putting in the description today and I put Alex Cox, C-O-X, YouTube flagged it as a word. I shouldn't use. I'm like, it's a last name, you jerks. You guys have been on me all day. Get off of me.
Yes.
Let me make sure you understood. Was there anything about what you observed with Alex Cox talking or his ability to move that made you think you should override his decision to not get treatment, and you thought, oh, he better get treatment, he's so bad off?
Oh, zero, none.
At some point while you were talking with Alex Cox, did you see a female and a teenager show up at the scene?
I did.
And did you eventually go speak with those two?
I did.
Where did you speak with them?
Just on the other side of the street. They had parked right across from the house.
Did you speak with the adult female?
I did.
Did you ask for a driver's license to identify her?
I did.
And who was that person?
Lori Vallow.
Do you see Lori Vallow in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point her out and tell us what she is wearing for the record?
She's at the defense table wearing a white shirt underneath looks like a black jacket.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
Shall.
When you went to speak with Lori Vallow, did you know that the deceased person in the house was her husband?
I did.
When you went to speak with Lori Vallow, did you ask her whether or not the individual inside her husband lived there?
I did not ask her that.
Can you describe for us Lori Vallow's demeanor as you were interacting with her?
Calm, nonchalant, just kind of a matter of fact, just talking to me as I'm talking to you now.
When you went to speak with Lori Vallow, can you tell us approximately how many police cars were parked around there?
Well, I don't know either myself. I know there was at least mine and Officer Wiz's. There's a fire truck there. I think there was an ambulance there, and I think there may have been another police car. I can't remember, but there was a lot of emergency vehicles just near the home itself.
And was her brother Alex Cox sitting sort of in view of her?
Literally across the street, like the desk of the prosecutor would be her car. This is the street, and I had Alex seated right on the sidewalk.
When she first arrived, did she actually walk up to where you were with Alex Cox?
Yes, she did.
And you asked her to go back to the other side of the street?
I did.
Did she ever ask you how her brother was doing?
No.
Did she ever ask you if her brother needed medical attention from being hit by a bat?
No.
Did she ever ask you why there were so many police cars around the neighborhood?
No.
Did she ask you why there was a fire truck parked in front of her house?
No.
So other than gathering basic information, did you really talk to her about anything else?
No.
And were you wearing that body-worn camera footage or camera when you had contact with her?
I did.
After you talked with Lori Vallow, did you go back and stand near Alex Cox again?
Yes.
If I can have my paralegal go up and show him exhibit number 1. Do you recognize exhibit number 1?
I do.
Is that a copy of your body cam footage from July 11th of 2019?
It is.
Is it missing the audio other than during your interaction with Lori Vallow?
Correct. Yes.
And did you initially identify that previously as your body cam?
I did.
State will move to admit exhibit number 1.
Any objection to exhibit number 1? Any
No
objection
objection.
to
No objection.
exhibit one's admitted?
And if we could publish it.
Go ahead.
So is this you responding to the scene?
Correct.
And was your camera flipped upside down initially?
Well, the camera wasn't, the orientation of the software was.
So that's why we see the axon and stuff in the bottom corner upside down.
That is correct.
So this was a gated community?
It was.
As you're driving, did you go by the fire truck here?
I did.
And is it standard for fire to stage a little ways away from the scene when it's a shooting?
Yes.
Why is that?
So they could respond quickly.
Do they want you to clear the residence first before they show up?
Yeah, it needs to be safe for the firemen. We had to make sure there's no one else in the house that was armed or in the area.
And as you're arriving, is the person, the shooter, still inside the house?
I can't recollect. I think he was at the door right now or just coming out to the door.
Why did you pull your weapon?
I was just told somebody killed somebody. So yeah, for my safety, I wanted to make sure I rendered him safe before I put my gun away. It was a threat to me.
So when he came out, he had both his hands up in the air.
Mhm.
So at that point, nothing touching his head yet, no.
Correct.
Now, did you stay out with him while Officer Worsbicky went inside?
I did.
While you're talking with him during this whole time, at this point, he still hasn't brought anything out to try to place on his injury.
Correct.
When he came out, did he already have those sunglasses on the top of his head?
He did.
Why did you have him move over here?
I actually physically couldn't hear him. Fire trucks are incredibly loud, so I had to move away.
The fire had already pulled up to now go inside the residence.
Correct.
And can you kind of see them in the corner going in?
Yes.
Did you learn whose truck that was in the driveway?
I don't recollect right now whose truck it is. I think it's his, but I'm not sure.
I think the guy on the sidewalk is the brother. Yeah, that's Alex. COX, so I don't get in trouble. The guy who unalived Charles Vallow in self-defense. I don't know who keeps whispering, if that's Lori and her advisory council who just asked, how do you say his name?
And who is that other officer there?
That's Officer Wizbeski, sorry. I've been calling him Wiz since I've known him.
Shorter.
That's the only reason I'm doing it too, Zach.
Were you initially trying to control the scene yourself, sort of helping to tell people where to go and what to do?
Oh, absolutely. My head's on kind of a swivel. I'm always kind of looking around like people just walk up to you and asking what's going on. And got to make sure no one's going to walk up to the house. So you just try to keep it as pristine as you can.
So we see him putting his head now, or his hand on the back of his head, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated there's a fire truck there. You asked him if he wanted any medical attention,
I did.
and he declined it.
He refused.
Do we not get audio because the brother's not alive
does.
anymore either, and she's not alive
That's
anymore?
Lori Vallow and her daughter.
So when you said across the street, we just saw a red SUV. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
So at this point, did you know the name of the individual inside the residence?
Yes.
And who was that?
Charles Vallow.
And did you at this point understand who that woman was that walked up?
Yes.
And who did you believe she was?
His wife.
Normally when someone is shot and killed, is there a team of detectives and crime scene specialists who will come out to handle the case?
Yes.
And are you, as patrol officers, sort of stuck with taking care of it until they arrive?
Yeah, we deal with the burning, bleeding, and blowing up stuff. Anything that takes time and a lot more in-depth stuff, that's what the detectives do.
And then what do we see here that just came up?
Looks like an ambulance.
You told us that you understood when you were arriving that this shooting had just happened. Do you recall at this point when the 911 call came in?
No, I don't remember specifics on the time. I think at 8:39 I was dispatched to it. I would imagine the call for service came in a minute or two before that.
And approximately, do you recall how long it took you to get to the scene?
Probably 4 or 5 minutes.
We see more people walking up. Are you trying to stop the contamination of the scene by having more people walk in there?
Yes, I told the firemen kind of what was maybe in the house, and Officer Wiz was already in the house. And so we were just trying to control how many firemen went into the house.
So when you're the first on scene, are you trying to have the least number of people go in there as possible?
Yes,
Are you trying to not touch anything that's not necessary to be touched?
correct, yes.
Obviously, if fire's going to work on a person, they're going to have to contaminate it somewhat.
Yes.
Is that when we sort of see fire now leaving?
I couldn't, just from recollection, I couldn't answer that.
We see something in Officer Becky's hand. Is that the crime scene tape?
Yes. We do a inner and then an outer perimeter.
I did not mute anybody, just FYI. There we go. See?
Is it normal for a patrol officer to have to stay with the individual who is the shooter and ensure that no one else is contacting them?
Yes.
So you don't want any of the neighbors walking up to them?
Correct. At this moment, I'm still basically fact finding. I'm just trying to figure out what happened, when it happened, who was involved, kind of thing. And yeah, I try to keep them separate.
At some point, do sergeants and others start arriving on scene?
Yes, that's my Sergeant Nacella.
When you have a scene like this where detectives are going to be called out, do all the different patrol officers provide their information that could be relevant to one person who can then brief the detectives?
Yes, I briefed my supervisor to let him know from my point of view what I know and what I was told. And then at some point, I think he would disseminate that to the detectives.
So is this you kind of telling him at this point what you've learned?
Yes,
And can we also see what the body camera looks like on the shoulder there?
yes, he has the same type.
What made you decide that you needed to go over and talk to Lori Vallow?
Again, it's fact finding, really. It's who are you? And when I say who, I always like to identify them by their Arizona driver's license, because although my name is Robert, I go by Rob. So I don't want to assume her name is just Lori. It could be something specifically or longer. So I usually ask people for identification.
And that's so you can put that into your report appropriately.
Correct.
So we saw the ambulance leave. That means they didn't transport him.
Correct.
Did you learn that you actually couldn't cordon off this area the way you had initially thought because there was only one way out?
That is correct. We initially, as you can see, cordoned off part of the road so anybody couldn't just drive up to us. We later learned that's the only way that part of the neighborhood could actually exit the neighborhood. So we had to change the tape a little bit.
And then we see fire leave here as well. So now it's just police basically at the scene.
Police and I think a crime scene technician.
And are you still the only person responsible for making sure that no one is talking with Alex Cox?
I am.
Okay.
Is this where you go over to speak with Ms. Vallow?
Yes.
All right, that's Tylee. For those of you that don't know, she is the victim of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. That's the daughter. JJ's at school at this point, I believe, so we won't see him. That's who Lori in her opening was saying that Charles, the victim, was trying to hit with a baseball bat.
Gotcha. Okay.
You could turn up the volume.
Yeah, finally.
Thank you. L-O-R-I. What does your middle initial stand for? Noreen. N-O. V-A-L. What's a phone number for you, Lori? 755? 5456. You know, not in Santan, this is your home? Right. Gotcha. Right. Okay.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
Okay.
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
Are you working at all?
No.
Okay. And you're still about 5'6", 120?
Did you also get biographical information?
I did.
Was that Tylee Ryan?
It was.
Let's stop it now. After you had talked with Alex Cox and Lori Vallow, did you go brief some of the detectives about what you had learned?
I did.
Did you tell the detectives that Lori Vallow did not know that her husband Charles was dead?
I told them that I did not advise her of such.
Okay. Did you believe that she did not know that her husband was dead?
I did.
Why did you believe that?
Well, I was under the understanding that this just happened. She just arrived back on scene, and I did not advise her of what happened in the house.
When you spoke with Alex Cox, did he provide additional information that made you believe that she was not present when the shooting happened?
Yes.
After you advised the detectives of this, did you then return and remain with Alex Cox and for a significant additional period of time?
Yes.
Were you eventually asked to transport him to the police station?
I was.
Can you describe his demeanor during the transport?
Calm. Didn't ask. We just talked about things not related to this at all. Just a conversation between like me and you, just normal, average tone, calm.
And did you stay with him at the police station until a detective?
See you, Zach. Enjoy your dinner and time with your parents. And also, I can't help how our daughter dresses. Tell her to do better. Actually, don't tell her that. She dresses just fine. She's not a ragamuffin at all. Sometimes.
arrived?
Yes,
Did that end your involvement in this case?
it did.
I have no further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Finally. Has that little innocent voice. Zach, you are in so much trouble. I feel a timeout coming, but not today. Not today. I mean, when you least expect it, I'm putting it in the memory bank for later. That wasn't that wasn't very nice. Yeah, don't come back with that now. Too late. Hey, Puddletown. I saw Zach talking. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hi, Puddletown. Good to see you. Oh no, I don't want him timed out today, Flashman. We're gonna keep that one. We'll keep it for a rainy day when he least expects it.
Can you pronounce your last name for me? I don't want to get it wrong.
Krautheim.
Krautheim.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, Officer Krautheim.
At the
correct?
time, yes.
At the time. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. You mentioned about Alex being calm when he exited the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you were advised that he had told the 911 operator that he composed himself and then called 911. Is that correct?
I don't remember the compose himself, but I think he did.
But you stated in your report that Alex was very calm throughout the entire time talking with him, correct?
Yes.
And The scene itself, was it chaotic?
No,
Were people running around screaming?
no,
Were people running in and out of the front door?
no.
So were the officers calm?
It was just me and another officer.
Were you calm?
Yes,
Was the other officer calm?
he was.
Were the detectives calm?
They were.
Was the fire department calm?
I didn't interact with them very much. I couldn't answer that.
Your friend the Wiz was calm?
Yes, the other officer, yes.
So when I arrived at the scene, things were pretty calm.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you were calm.
No, I'm saying when I arrived at the scene itself was calm environment.
It was.
Okay. So if I would have been hysterical, that would have been more out of character than if I was calm when everybody else was being calm. Isn't that
Objection,
correct?
speculation.
Sustain.
So you said that Alex was calm and was holding a towel in his right hand and holding it up to the back of his head. Is that correct?
He did.
And you said, oh, sorry, it's in my other note. Just now that his head had a 1-inch laceration. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's like a cut down his head. 1
It
inch?
is.
Okay. And you said a small knot.
I did.
Is that correct? Okay. And so, and that it was bleeding a little. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And so a small knot is what you declared it, but would you not call it a goose egg?
tomato, tomato.
Okay. Did Alex ask for medical treatment?
He did not.
How many times did you ask him if he needed medical treatment?
I think 3 times.
Okay. And there was EMS right there next to you?
Yes,
So an EMS person could have just come over and checked the back of his head pretty easily, yeah?
yes,
Yes. But no one asked anybody to do that? Correct?
correct.
Okay. And he didn't seem disoriented to you at all?
No,
So you didn't think he needed any kind of medical attention at the time?
no,
And he didn't ask for any at the time?
correct. He did not.
And you didn't supply any at the time?
Correct.
Okay. But EMT was right there next to you?
Yes,
Okay. That's another thing that you said, calm and nonchalant. Is that correct? You
Yes.
stated that Alex was nonchalant. What is your definition of nonchalant?
kind of like how I am now. I don't have a lot of emotion. I'm not afraid, just nonchalant.
Is that your typical demeanor?
I guess it depends on the situation and the circumstance.
I mean, this can be a stressful situation, right? So it's your demeanor right now.
It is.
Testifying in court can be a stressful situation.
I guess it can be.
So if that was Alex's normal demeanor, then it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for him to be nonchalant.
Objection, speculation.
I'll allow it. I'll allow that answer. He doesn't know the demeanor, but you can answer.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, so if Alex's normal demeanor was like your normal demeanor, and even in a stressful situation, if he was nonchalant, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for him to be nonchalant again, because that's his normal demeanor. Correct?
Objection to compound question.
I'll sustain that objection.
You mentioned that I had parked across the street. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why did I have to park across the street?
I don't know.
So we saw on the body cam, right, that there was a huge fire truck, correct?
Yes.
There was police cars, correct?
Yes.
There was a CSI van, correct?
She was parked somewhere. I don't know where.
Next to the house, kind of, I guess, south of the house. So there was nowhere to park except for across the street. Is that correct?
No,
That's not correct?
that is not correct.
Where else could I have parked?
Well, the street's long. You could have parked anywhere along the street. You could have parked on the other street. That's where I parked. Or you could park on the other side of the street, south of the home, where there was plenty of parking. So there was other options to park.
But I parked as close as I could to the scene so that I could come talk to you.
Objection.
Is that correct?
Speculation, testifying.
Sustain.
So we can agree that there were lots of police vehicles blocking the house. Is that correct?
Emergency vehicles.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, emergency, police, fire, CSI, all were there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But even though all of those things were there, the scene was not chaotic. Is that correct?
Correct.
It was a very calm scene that day.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustain.
Do you know how hot it was that day?
No, but it was hot.
It was hot. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. What was the extent of your duties that day? I know that you had arrived on the scene. You said dispatched was about 8:39 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then it took you about 4 to 5 minutes to arrive.
Yes.
And then you were the first on the scene.
No.
No. Who was the first on the scene? Do you know?
Wiz was.
Oh, that's correct. And then who arrived? How long after he arrived did you arrive? Do you know?
Oh, I was like seconds,
Okay.
maybe 10, 15 seconds.
And then you were right there when Alex came out of the house
I was.
and you were with him basically that whole time till he
Yes.
got into the police car?
Yes,
And then did you drive him to the station?
I did.
So you were in the car with him the whole time?
Yes.
So you really never didn't have eyes on Alex from the time he came out of the house till the time he got to the police station?
Correct.
Okay. And did you have a conversation on the way to the police station?
I did.
You did. And that's the second body cam we didn't watch, is that correct? That has your name on it?
Yeah, there's another body worn camera we haven't seen.
Right, from the police car, I'm saying.
Yes, me driving.
You driving, but it comes from the car, not from the shoulder body cam, is that correct?
No, it comes from my body
Oh, it was
worn
still
camera.
on your shoulder?
Yes.
Okay. And in that, did you have a conversation with Alex on the way to the police station?
Yes.
Objection asked and answered.
And did he
on.
express,
Hold on. When
Sorry.
there's an objection.
I'm sorry,
Wait for the ruling. I'll sustain the objection, but the answer will stand nonetheless. Go ahead. Next question.
did he express to you that he kind of felt out of it
And
because he hit?
hearsay?
Sustain.
When did you make your report about the incident on July 11th, 2019?
I think what was the end of my workday that day, but I stopped and started it numerous times throughout the day.
So did you finish it that day or it still took a few days?
No, I finished at the end of my shift,
By the end of your shift, which was what time that day?
4 o'clock.
Okay. And did you make any revisions to that later on?
No,
So this is the only report that you made in regards to the day of July 11th, 2019?
it is.
You stated that there was red liquid on the rag towel that appeared to be blood. Did you think it was something other than blood?
Well, I had no way to test it, so I have to articulate it that way.
So he was bleeding from the back of the head.
He was.
on the right-hand side.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And then was it you on the body cam who briefed the detectives, Detective Moffett and Detective Inkland in the front yard?
Yes, I made contact with him, yes.
And then you had told them basically what Alex had conveyed to you, what happened.
Yes.
And then what do they do with that information? Do they just put it into a report?
I don't know. You'll have to ask them.
Okay. So your report goes to who after you're finished with it?
I sent it to my supervisor.
And who was that at the time? Do you remember?
That was Bill Nacella.
Oh, the same one.
Sergeant,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And then did you speak to the case agent on this case regarding this incident on July 11th?
I did at the time. That's when I walked up to them at the front door area.
Okay. And was Detective Moffett the case agent at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And now it's Detective Duncan, as far as you know?
As far as I know, I don't know for sure, but that's what I've been told.
Okay. And how long do you think that you were at the residence? What was the whole time before you guys left to go to the police station? Do you remember? Do you recall?
No, I do not. It would be in my CAD history on when I transported him from the home to the PD. So I'd have to look at that, and I don't know. 40 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes, something like that.
Now, someone on the video, and I don't remember who it was, but put a phone into a evidence bag. Was that you?
I don't recollect that.
Okay. And then got into the car. Did someone ride with you to the police station from the residence? Just you and Alex were in the car?
Yes,
No other officers?
correct.
But before you got into the car, an officer came over and took his phone and put it in an evidence bag?
You're asking me for recollection. I don't remember that. It's probable because we usually try to bring their property to the area where we're going to. So it's probable.
I just didn't see it in your report, but I saw it on the body cam, so I wondered if you knew. Okay.
I'm going to object to the defendant testifying.
All right. Please only ask questions.
Sure.
When you make statements about what you saw or heard, that's testimony.
I apologize, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
So it says in your report that you were asked by Detective Moffett to transport Alex to the police station, not handcuffed. Is that correct?
Yes,
And to the downstairs interview room. I'm assuming that's at Chandler Police Department,
it is.
correct? Okay. And it was just the two of you in the car on the ride there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Then when you arrived at the police station, what happened next?
Walked him up to the room, had him sit down, or I think brought him some water, I think. And the detective was literally behind me. It wasn't very long before he walked into the room.
So then Detective Moffett took over and you were excused?
Yes,
Okay. And then was that the extent of your duty
it was.
at that time? And did you leave the police station after that?
Yes.
Did you stay and observe the interview?
No.
So Detective Moffett took over for you and you departed?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, MLS. I do agree with you. But she has advisory council sitting over there with her. Do they not look at her questions first to tell her they suck? Or don't ask this, that's hearsay, or that's speculation? Or does he just let her go? You can hear them whispering every once in a while. So he is helping her. I just don't know how, I don't know how much advisory, I don't know if there's a difference between advisory counsel and standby counsel and how much they can help. If that makes sense. No way, Flash fan. They will not look at her questions. They will only advise her on the law, and it's a little bit better than someone on YouTube asking me my legal thoughts in chat. Sorry. But it's similar. Sorry. I just Oh, sorry, heroes and villains. I am not dressing up as Wonder Woman. At least not right now. All right. And then I wonder why they redirect after questions like that, if they just feel like they have to redirect. They shouldn't get anywhere.
You said when you spoke to Alex that he was cooperative. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I back it up? I thought she said no more questions.
Is it possible he could have been in shock?
Objection, speculation.
Sustain.
From your observation, how long did the cut on Alex's head bleed? I mean, you were with him for that 40 minutes, and how long do you think it was bleeding?
Well, I couldn't answer that because I wasn't standing in the back of his head when I first made contact with him. So to be honest with you, I don't know when it started. So I don't have the minutes.
Did it appear to be bleeding when he exited the house or no?
Back this up. If I did, I didn't.
I didn't look at the back of his head right away when he exited the house.
When was the first time that you looked at it? About how long after he exited?
I can't answer time-wise, but it was during the time I had him seated at the sidewalk when I was talking to him.
Okay. Before he moved over or after?
Oh, after he moved over.
Okay. Did you ever enter into the house?
No.
You were just there in the front yard
Yes.
the whole time? Okay. When you talked to the two detectives in the front yard and gave them your synopsis of what had happened, you said they got into a domestic fight consisted.
Objection.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
What was the legal objection?
Hearsay.
Hearsay.
Oh, I was just reading his report. Okay.
Then objection, no question.
Please ask your next question.
You said in your report that at one point Alex's niece grabbed the bat.
Objection,
Hold on.
hearsay,
That's
improper
hearsay.
question.
Okay, you can't ask hearsay. Please ask your next question.
Did Alex tell you that he got hit in the head with the bat?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay, prior ruling.
Yeah, it's sustained. You can't ask questions of what Alex said.
Because he's not here anymore, Lori.
So you observed that he had this bump on his head, but you didn't know how he got it. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
You did know how he got it. Is that correct?
I was told how he got it, which is different than me knowing how he got it, if that makes any sense.
Correct. You did not witness it, is what you're saying.
Correct.
But you knew that he had an injury to the back of his head on the right side.
I did.
Correct. Okay.
Everyone's correct.
And how did you obtain that information, Your Honor?
You can't answer if it calls for hearsay.
Did you observe the next door neighbor come out in her nightgown to speak to me?
I did.
And then there was another neighbor on the other side that came out that you told him to go back into his house? Is that
Well, it was
correct?
a neighbor, but it was just some guy. Yeah, I assumed he was a neighbor.
Right. So they had blocked off the street so the neighbors couldn't really exit the neighborhood. They couldn't go to school or work, or it's kind of an issue there.
Not really. I mean, when one car told us the layout of the neighborhood, then we realized that was the only person that wanted to exit. They told us they couldn't exit, so we just fixed it so anyone else could leave.
Right. But they were trying to come up to me to find out what was happening.
Objection,
Okay.
speculation, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection. Let's take our afternoon break for the staff and the jurors. We're going to take a 15-minute stretch restroom break. Please remember the admonition.
All rise for the jury.
Juror 15. Juror 15.
Sure. It's what the closed captioning say. I had 18 seconds. Well, maybe a little bit more. Not much. Yay. And it's never 15 minutes. Let's just be honest. That's all the L's I got. All right. Hopefully they're about done for the day. Flashman, do you know what time they're starting tomorrow? Or if they probably have to find out at the end today. Are they starting late every day? That will help me. So, how's everyone think Lori's doing so far? Pelltown? I know you think you just want to listen to her talk and look at the back of her head. For unknown reasons. I won't say why. Because she has, what'd you say, tuggable hair? Sure. Okay. She is a solid meh. Not good, not bad either. She is just kind of there, isn't she? It's like, you're not making. Where are we going? We can't even look at the seal? Okay. Yeah, it's her voice. Ugh, I can't do it. Wouldn't surprise me. Why not? I wouldn't touch her. I mean, it's not my thing anyway, but I wouldn't touch her because most people that are within her in her sphere are dead, are unalive. They die from weird things. Well, that was all righty. We're back. That's them muted, not me. Just FYI. Her name is Betsy. Gabby, are you just making stuff up? There is a flying fish, Flash fan. Fry her. Well, they're going to fry him, Puddletown, which is kind of unfair. That wasn't even an option for her. But he got it. Is he still well, I guess are they done for the day? Does anybody know? Is Sal still there? He shouldn't touch her. He shouldn't touch her. She's like a weird Medusa. Don't touch her. Puddletown. Puddletown. About Chad, Flashman? Yeah, Chad. Yep. He got that old capital punishment. Gabby, that's gross. The state screwed up on that one. They waited too long to get the information to the defense. That's a very clear law. There's a very clear law on that issue. On which one? On Chad or her? No, never mind. Maybe. I'm going to assume her. I know it's gross. It is true and it is gross. Don't touch the koalas. They give you stuff that you don't want. Yes, it's on a 30-minute delay. I don't get it. Like, what? They did the same thing with the boat club crash one. They delayed that one coming out. It was more than 30 minutes. It's just annoying. It's coming anyway as you cutting stuff out. And they've been so careful. They haven't, on the body cam, they were very careful just to put the camera back down. I don't know, but I'm kind of with Zach. This isn't like the best trial. I just really wanted to watch her. It's coming back. That's what she said. I was going to say, Gabby, I'm not touching that one, but you could say, also, that's what she said. How do you circumcise? Zach's not even here to defend himself. How do you circumcise Zach? Kick his sister in the jaw. It is not Daryl Brooks. Yeah, the one that we've been watching on Thursdays. That one was delayed coming out for some reason. Heck no, Haley Mouse. How you doing? They're just coming back from a break. There's the girl. There's the thing. I don't know whose that is. Don't touch her. And we're going back to the seal. If Hera was in here, she hates state seals and she really hates Wisconsin's, and she would be barking up a storm right now. I don't know why she doesn't like Wisconsin state seal, but she goes crazy when she sees it. Maybe it's the Badgers. I'm not letting her in here to see what she thinks about this one because she goes crazy.
Just a couple more things.
No.
You mentioned that you briefed the detectives. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what did you tell them in that briefing?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Are his statements hearsay as well, Your Honor?
Any out of court statement is hearsay unless there's an exception or it's non-hearsay under the rules. So yes, his out of court statements are hearsay. Go ahead.
But you did brief the detectives before you headed to the police station? Is that correct?
I did.
And who was there? Do you remember?
Nate Moffett, Cassie, I think my
Is that
sergeant.
Detective Inklin? I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
Oh,
And just off recollection, I think there was another one, but off of recollection, I don't remember.
and that was about how long before you left to go to the police station?
And he could
Do you
turn
remember?
it.
There. Do you
Stop
remember?
it. Stop talking. And he could tell her right there if she asked him or if she went over to ask him. I assume she wouldn't ask him from right there. Because I'm not advocating for her. It's just interesting to me. Because she's not being a Daryl Brooks and she is kind of trying, but she can't do it. So that's all I'm asking. Like, just go ask.
Nate Moffett, Cassie, I think my
Is that
sergeant.
Detective Inklin? I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
Oh,
And just off recollection, I think there was another one, but off of recollection, I don't remember.
and that was about how long before you left to go to the police station?
$10 minutes, maybe?
And how long do you think you were speaking with them?
Under a minute.
Under a minute
Yes.
for the briefing?
Yes.
True, Petaltown. But I'm also curious about what she can and can't do in that.
Did you meet with the prosecutor to go over your testimony today?
I did.
When was that?
2 weeks ago, maybe?
Okay, Flashman.
How long did that meeting last?
Probably around an hour total.
Did you review this report before you came to testify today as well?
I did.
It was not part of your duty to check anything in the perimeter. You weren't looking for evidence. You were just dealing with the shooter. Is that correct?
Well, not just the shooter, but scene management, making sure the resources were en route. But yes, managed.
What all does that entail, scene management?
Well, once we knew there was not a threat out, I instructed Officer Wiz to set up an inner and outer perimeter with crime scene tape.
What else?
Make sure I had a supervisor en route, and then manage the people that walked up to the scene.
Who was that supervisor en route? Do you know?
Bill Nacella, my sergeant.
How many people do you think came up to you at that scene?
Well, not up to me, but I instructed one gentleman that was walking on the sidewalk towards us. He needed to just leave the area. This didn't concern him. And then you and your daughter walked up to me, and I just asked you to go back to your car.
Did you have any conversations with your supervisor when he arrived?
I did.
When was that?
At some point between me arriving on scene and me leaving the scene.
Closer to arriving or closer to leaving? Maybe.
Chocolate milkshake says about halftime.
Okay. How long do you think that conversation?
Did he seriously just say it's chocolate milkshake says about halftime? What? Ain't it a wow? How are you? What? Closed caption says chocolate milkshake says about halftime, but that sounded like what he said too. I thought so too, Bri. What the heck? Sometime between when I got there and when I left, I did this. Whatever. And had chocolate milkshake.
Conversation was?
Well, you saw it on the body worn camera, so a minute and a half maybe.
And he was just checking in with you to make sure everything was going well, that you were scene managing. Is that correct?
Objection, relevance, and hearsay.
Overruled, he can answer.
I was briefing him on what I knew thus far, what I was told.
And that was less than a minute?
Yeah.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
So it took less than a minute to brief him on everything that had happened that day so far?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And it took less than a minute to brief the detectives as well of what happened that day?
An objection, asked and answered.
I'll allow that one. Go ahead.
Not what happened, what my portion was and what I knew happened.
So what you wrote in your report, basically, what you were told. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it took you 3 pages to write what you were told, but it took you less than a minute to discuss that with the detectives? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How long was that transport from the residence to the Chandler Police Department?
In miles, probably 8 miles, 10 miles maybe.
How long do you think that took around?
10 to 15 minutes maybe.
And then where did you enter into the police station? Is there a garage or something?
I don't recollect where I parked. There's various areas you can park at the police department to access the area that I access, so I'm unable to answer. I don't know where I parked.
Okay, and you were able to walk Alex into the police station, is that correct?
Yes,
And he was unhandcuffed, is that correct?
correct.
And then you took him into an interrogation room, is that correct?
Yes,
And then Detective Moffett took over.
yes.
Just wanted to be clear. Okay. Did your supervisor, Nacella, did he come to the police station as well?
Not with me, nor did I talk to him. He might have, but
But did you saw Detective Moffett there?
yes.
And you saw Detective Inkland there?
I don't remember Inkland. I just remember Moffett relieved me.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, redirect.
Thank you.
The beginning of cross-examination, you were asked about Alex Cox's demeanor. Do you recall that?
I do?
And you had advised that he was nonchalant and calm, right?
Yes,
And you were asked whether or not you were nonchalant and calm too, correct?
yes,
Had you just shot someone?
no,
You were asked if the firefighters were calm and nonchalant. Had they just shot someone?
as far as I know, no,
How about Officer Wiz? You said he was nonchalant and calm too. Had he just shot anyone?
no,
So it's not really exactly the same to compare you to the shooter, right?
correct. I would not compare us.
When you went up to the scene, you had your gun drawn on him, correct?
Yes,
Still nonchalant and calm?
yes,
You were asked a lot also about your nonchalant and calm appearance today in court. Are you stressed or just answering questions to the best of your knowledge?
the latter, just answering questions to the best of my knowledge.
You had to testify before?
I have.
You were asked about the injury to Alex Cox. We have seen the body-worn camera footage and we cut it off at some point. When Mr. Cox first came out of the house, he did not have his hand to his head, correct?
Correct,
You told us you didn't notice an injury at that point.
correct.
When he first sat down on the curb before you moved him, did you notice an injury at that point?
I did not.
Was he touching his head at that point?
Recollection, I don't remember.
At some point in the video that we watched, did we see Alex Cox touch his head?
Yes,
When you were watching him, did you at times see him rubbing his head?
yes,
The towel or paper towel or whatever that was in his hand, was that the only item you ever saw him using to rub or touch his head?
yes.
Was it soaked or saturated in blood?
No,
Can we see it on the body cam that it's mostly white?
yes,
So if we want to really know how long it was that he was seated before he touched his head, we could watch the time on the body cam, right?
yes,
You were asked if you met with the prosecutor previously. When we met, did you have to watch that entire body cam?
yes,
And is that when you actually initialed it, exhibit number 1 there, so that you would recognize it in court?
yes.
You were asked about when you arrived and when you later transported Alex Cox to the precinct. Would looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when you had at least taken him to the precinct?
Yes.
If I could have my paralegal bring up the CAD report.
Go ahead.
After 5 p.m., Haley. Nothing specific there, other than the time.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to when you arrived back at the precinct with Alex Cox?
It does.
And when was that?
9:18 and 19 seconds.
And so the 911 call was at 8:36 a.m.?
That's when I received it. It could have come into the dispatch a few minutes earlier.
And you said you arrived, and we saw you on the body cam right after Officer Where's Biggie, who got there around 8:41?
Yes.
So you were with Alex Cox at the scene and talking to Lori Vallow and her daughter and doing those briefings in that 20, 30 minutes?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.
All right, I see at least one juror question in a bin. If there are any juror questions, please pass them down at this time.
I wouldn't be able to do it, Bri. Yay, beeps. Oh, goody. We do have a jury question. This jury, that is annoying, is allowed to ask questions. Oh, wow. This feels like if I'm on a heart monitor, I want it to beat a little bit better. Yeah, because they got to they got to go through the jury question. They just can't read them out. They got to make sure the lawyers don't object to them, or the lawyer and her. Bri, you might be old enough to remember. Remember in school when you had to put the headphones on, they do a hearing test, and you had to like raise your finger when you could hear it, which ear you could hear it in. That's what that reminded me of. Flashman, I know you won't remember that, even though you're vintage. I can still hear it. I can still hear it. Yeah, that's what this noise reminds me of. Gabby remembers it too. I did not see what you shared in Discord yet, Haley. Flashman. I'm going to let it go, but I could get you. They still did that in the 200s? I got you. I had to.
Just one question, and I don't know if the CAD will help you answer that. Do you know when you were finished with this call? What time it was when you were finished or released from this call and able to go back out?
It was probably 5 minutes after, maybe 10, probably 10 minutes. I probably used the restroom, to be honest with you, and got something to drink at the station, water. So maybe 10 or 15 minutes after the detective came in the room is when I hit the 10-8 button and I went and took other calls for service.
Okay, so you were done with this call before the end of your shift?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you didn't go back to the scene to help with scene security or anything like that?
No.
No other questions?
Did the defendant have any follow-up?
No, we're fine, Your Honor.
All right, this witness can step down. You want to hand me that? Thank you. All right. You can call your next witness.
Seriously?
Firefighter and deal with medical calls.
When you're hired, you're going to go through an academy that will certify you as a state firefighter.
Sorry, that's
Typically, you're going to already be certified as an EMT. And then during the course of your career, I went to paramedic school and graduated from that in probably 2007.
Can you tell us what the difference is between a paramedic and an EMT?
EMT would just be kind of the more basic kind of entry level position. Paramedic is more advanced, so you have more advanced training. There's more advanced skills that you could perform. Some of our equipment would only be able to be used and utilized and performed by a paramedic.
As both a EMT or a paramedic, are you trained to perform CPR?
Yes.
And can you tell us, have you ever been a CPR instructor yourself?
Yes, I was a CPR instructor for probably over 12 years.
Was that for other firefighters?
I was certified through American Heart Association, a contract employee with Dignity Health. They have a variety of different classes that could be for just the lay rescuer, lay person that wants to know how to do CPR. They have classes that might be for certain businesses that want their employees. And then there's healthcare provider classes that it could be firefighters, nurses that are attending to be recertified. Every 2 years, you have to have that certification recertified.
Can you tell us what CPR is?
It stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So you're kind of acting as the heart. The heart has stopped beating, so no blood is flowing through the body. You're doing chest compressions on the chest, and you're pumping and pushing that blood to the body.
When would you give CPR to a person?
If they don't have a pulse, you confirm that just by checking for a pulse, and you don't feel that the heart isn't beating, and you would need to start chest compressions.
What is the point of that, of doing those chest compressions? You said moving the blood through the body. Why?
You're trying to, give them a chance, increase their chance of survival. I don't know what maybe the latest numbers and statistics might say, but in the past, I've seen it say that if somebody's starts CPR within the first few minutes, it can double or triple their chances of surviving.
When you are called to a scene, are you guys being given updates by the 911 operator to your dispatch so you know what to expect?
Yeah, so you get dispatched and you already have an idea of the type of call, and then en route we call it PTI, and that will come across the computer screen. And so now you have more information of what you're kind of walking into, so you can kind of game plan it a little bit more.
If somebody calls 911 and doesn't know how to do CPR, what happens?
My understanding is that 911 would talk them through that and give them instructions of what to do.
Okay. When you are giving CPR, you talked about chest compressions. Can you talk to us about, is there any physical identification that you might observe on a person who has had CPR chest compressions?
That I might see
After a person has been given chest compressions?
Yes. So you need to perform it in the right location. So it's the lower half of the sternum or breastbone. To kind of find that, it's more helpful if you can see the skin, maybe lift up the shirt. So that's typically something we're going to want to do. If CPR has been done and it's been done effectively enough, you can see almost like a depression or an impression that is left there on the skin. Because you need to do it forceful enough and deep enough that you're actually compressing the heart to push the blood.
So you said you might see a depression. Does that not just pop right back out when you stop?
No, you'll still see it. You'll see it like if you stop CPR during the call for whatever reason that it might be appropriate, and then you go back to resuming CPR, you'll see where your hands were. That area can be vulnerable to breaking. Ribs can break during CPR, so there's typically depression in the chest.
Do you ever actually hear anything when you are giving someone chest compressions?
I for sure feel it. I don't know if it's audible enough to hear it, especially with maybe the rest of the commotion that's going on, but you definitely feel that crunch or that crack. I kind of compare it to like if you're cracking your knuckles in your hands or something, your fingers. It kind of feels like something like that, but more extreme, I guess.
And this is something that you have felt multiple times in doing CPR?
Yes, and teaching CPR, you want to forewarn people of that too, that to kind of expect that and not necessarily kind of be alarmed. You don't want them to think they've caused more harm necessarily.
Does that crack or crunch occur each time you restart CPR in the same patient?
No, it's typically just the first couple of times.
Have you previously performed CPR on a person who was shot?
I'm sure I probably have.
Um,
Second time Court TV has done this to me today. I guess they didn't like the crack and the crunch, crackle or crack, whatever she said. It's gross. Are they done? Hello? Where you guys are over here talking about okie dokie. Huh. Well, okay. But did the guy get off at 4:30 so then the camera's done for the day? What's happening? And dang it, Puddletown. And Finn. Huh. All right. I like when they just end without warning. It's great. Yeah, you mean it was it was like a Sopranos ending. Just cuts off like mid-sentence. Let me check something. Their chat. Somebody says, we're all like Rose drifting in the water after the Titanic sank. Come back. Come back. uh, let's see. I have no idea. I was trying to see if they said anything in chat about it, but does not look like it. Maybe. We'll give it a minute. I don't have much faith. Oops. It's not on court TV. I don't know what Ada's playing on. Because even court TV chat is freaking out. Oh, okay. Is Law and Crime showing it? I will go check. There must have been a cloud. Oh, what's going on? Why is everything just freaking out? Hang on. Law and Crime has it.
You may have to move a patient just have better access, and that was not a challenge here.
Did you notice
But there's no closed
any
captioning.
blood on the scene?
Not until I saw it on the patient test. It wasn't something that I was going to need to avoid kneeling in to do CPR, avoid standing in, walking around. There's 4 of us. We probably had at least 4 boxes of equipment in there. So we didn't have to worry about where we placed this stuff in terms of blood.
Have you been to scenes where there's a large pool of blood around the patient that you're trying to not step in, kneel in, get in?
Yes.
You told us that you saw blood on the patient. Do you recall seeing any blood pooling in his chest, neck area?
I don't recall it pooling. He still had clothes on, a shirt on, and so it had been absorbing some blood.
I'll show you an admitted.
Oh, you guys don't care that I didn't go back to the crunchy
Exhibit number
CPR.
3. Do you recall ever seeing this pooling of blood around his neck there?
I don't recall that.
When you first saw the patient, what was your first impression?
That he's lying there unresponsive. You're not seeing any signs of life. You don't see somebody that's maybe moaning from an injury, moving.
Sorry, that was really low.
Breathing. What was your question again?
Just your first impressions of him as you are walking in and you're looking at him and assessing him.
Yeah, I guess that would be sufficient for my answer.
Did you think that he could be deceased?
It's definitely was a possibility. There was no, like I said, no obvious signs of life.
When you got into the room, did someone begin performing CPR on him?
So when I got to Charles' side, I would have performed a more detailed assessment, so to speak, rather than what I was seeing visually. So you're checking for responsiveness, You can move the patient. You're going to check for a pulse. Now you're closer to the chest. You're looking for breathing, seeing if you see the chest rise and fall. And we would call him unresponsive and pulseless and apneic. Apneic meaning not breathing. And then I would have started CPR.
So he wasn't breathing, he had no pulse, he wasn't moving, there were no signs of life.
Correct.
You told us that you had received information that someone had been doing CPR prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Did that impact your view of the patient and your decision-making on what you should do next when you see this patient that is lifeless?
I mean, it makes you think that there's a increased likelihood that of survival possibly, until we can, starting CPR is still appropriate to do, and then we can utilize some of our rest of our equipment. We can put an EKG machine on. We can actually see what the heart is doing. We can look at the rhythm. We wouldn't want to call a patient before taking some additional steps.
Okay. Who performed CPR?
I did.
And I'm going to put up Exhibit 4 here. Do you recognize who these people are?
Yes.
And who are they?
So standing to the left is Captain Keller. He's documenting. To the right is firefighter Kaczynski. And then kneeling down back towards us is myself. And then kneeling down where you're pointing is firefighter Fife.
When you first began performing CPR, can you tell us what you felt?
So at first I didn't see a depression that would typically be left from somebody else previously doing compressions. So I thought that was odd considering the information we had en route. I started doing compressions. I felt that initial crack and crunch for probably the first couple of compressions that, again, you would typically feel when you're first starting compressions and if you're going hard enough and deep enough.
How long did you do CPR before you evaluated and utilized any other means to see if he might still be alive, savable?
If I had to estimate, I think I was probably doing CPR, chest compressions for at least a minute. It probably took them at least 30 seconds to minutes to maybe get in to the house where I was after I entered. They've got to set down that equipment and get some of that out. So I feel like at least a minute is a fair assessment. What
Happened next? Is there some way to check his heart to see if there's
Right.
activity, or what do you do?
Yes, so I was doing chest compressions. I remember mentioning, because there's bullet holes going through them, so I remember mentioning to firefighter Kaczynski when she went to cut the shirt to not cut through a bullet hole. So she kind of went along the side. That's exposing the chest, so that way then we can put our heart monitor and perform an EKG on Charles to kind of see what his rhythm is doing. A person can typically still do chest compressions while they're doing that, and they can kind of work around you. But at some point in time, you're going to have to stop. That way you can just look at what the machine is showing you and telling you.
Was there any heart activity when you put on those EKG?
No, it was what we would call asystole, and it's just a flat line on the screen. There's no electrical activity of the heart.
At some point, you said you saw gunshot wounds. Do you recall how many you saw in the front there?
I saw 2.
Do you ever look to see if there's exit wounds?
We did roll him. I seem to recall and remember that we rolled him my way. I feel like the other two firefighters were then on that other side. Firefighter Kaczynski, who's the one that's standing up, I feel like she had a better view of what those looked like since he was rolled my way. But I remember her commenting that there was 2 wounds on that backside of the patient.
So when you say he was rolled towards you, he's rolled towards this mirror over here?
Correct.
Okay. When you had stopped doing the CPR to roll him and he goes back, did you notice the depression in his chest now?
After I resume CPR, yes. It makes it kind of easier to find your landmark. So it's something that you typically look for.
So it was not there when you first started CPR,
Correct.
but it was after you had performed it.
Correct.
Do you wear gloves when you do this?
Yes.
Did you have blood on your gloves after you were doing CPR?
Yes.
You told us that when you first arrived, there was not much concern for having to navigate around blood that might be pooling around the victim, correct?
Correct.
After you had been doing CPR, was there more blood now around the patient?
There was definitely more on his chest. More was coming out of the wounds, specifically the one on the chest, from what I recall. The shirt isn't necessarily there to absorb it anymore. We've removed it. I can't recall necessarily on the ground, like where I might have been kneeling, but
When you first arrived, did you see any blood exiting the abdomen wound?
I did not.
As you were at this scene, you guys did the EKG. There was no heart activity. What do you do after that?
At some point in time, we just kind of have to look at patient viability, and we're just looking at the facts and how he's kind of presenting. And we're considering time that we've already been on scene, time, staging, responding, all of that. And we ultimately, we do have offlines that we follow for different types of medical calls. And we felt that he fell into that category of not being viable and that we could call him on scene.
Now, you talked about you were not staged very far away, correct?
Correct.
Were you staged very long before you pulled up?
I felt like we might have been there for at least a couple of minutes.
Okay. When the patient was rolled, did anyone notice anything about, or did you notice anything about his skin that made you also question perhaps how long it had been since he had been shot?
Yes, it was pointed out because I didn't have a good view of that backside, the skin color, some modeling. There's changes in the skin color that are starting to occur from, blood hasn't been circulating, maybe been circulating as effectively as compared to when the heart is beating. You've got 2 injuries to the thoracic torso of the body, so to speak, the chest and abdomen. Those are going to hit internal organs and cause internal bleeding. And so that blood is starting to kind of what we would call dependent lividity. And it's just.
Welcome back, Puddletown. I don't know what happened to your membership, but thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. But hopefully it's all good. I know you have. That's why I don't know what happened. YouTube. What are you going to do?
It's gravity is just kind of starting to go towards the backside and the color changes that are occurring.
So as the heart stops, the blood starts to just pool.
Yes, it's just stagnant, not being moved, and then those injuries inside, he's going to be bleeding internally.
And so some of that pooling causes color changes to the skin
Yes.
that were observed.
Yes.
Was there anything about this victim, about Charles, that made you think that CPR may not have been performed on him prior to you arriving?
It was just simply the fact that what I saw on the chest when I first looked at it before I started CPR, and then what I felt during my first couple of chest compressions.
After you guys rolled him, saw the modeling and the lividity, was any further CPR performed?
From what I recall, yes.
Okay. When did you call this then?
Say that again.
When did you call it? When did you stop performing CPR?
So I don't remember with 100% certainty if I feel like, from what I recall, I'm performing chest compressions, the shirt's going to be cut off, we're exposing the patient, rolling, looking for more wounds and injuries, confirming what we see on the back, pointing that out to Captain Keller so he can document it, rolling back down, resuming CPR, monitors going on, stopping again to look at what the monitor's saying, resuming again to then have a brief discussion based on, okay, what we found, what are we thinking, where does he kind of fall?
Ultimately, did you guys terminate any treatment at about 8:48 a.m.?
If that's what's on the documentation, I would agree with that. I know we responded in the morning. It was our shift starts at 8 a.m. This was our first call. I don't remember if you said earlier what time we were dispatched or not, or just established the date.
If my paralegal could approach with the charting, would looking at the charting help you refresh your recollection as to when you guys ended
Sure.
any life-saving means?
So it looks like our dispatch is 8:37. Looks like we might have made patient contact at 8:45.
It wasn't his hospital, right?
I know the dispatch screen that will have like times of responding and things like that might have an appropriate time on it also that I'm not seeing right here though, but I'm still looking. So I see our first monitored rhythm as the asystole, like I said, that date time, I see a time of 8:48. So that might have been when we called him. I can see the obvious signs of death that Captain Keller used as the reason for discontinuing ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation, no. So that would probably be the appropriate time.
After, well, let me say, so does it seem about right that you were with this patient for maybe 3 or so minutes? Actively working?
Actively working, I think probably close to 5 minutes.
And once he's called, what do you do at the scene? What do you do with all your equipment?
So once he's called, it's kind of a PD scene now. And so we're gonna leave the body. We're gonna gather up what we can, our equipment. Sometimes there's some stuff we might need to leave behind that's necessary to leave on the patient. But
So like the EKG monitors that are stuck on him, you leave those on him?
yeah, we can disconnect those exactly and bring the cables with us.
When you told us when you arrived that you noticed a individual with a police officer near the driveway.
Correct.
Did you see that same person still outside when you exited?
Yes.
Did you notice any bleeding or obvious injuries to that person?
No.
Did you make an assumption as to who that was?
Yes, our PTI en route said brother or brother-in-law shot brother, so performing CPR. So you're kind of assuming it's that person.
Okay. In terms of his size, is he someone that, you talked about people may not be able to always be strong enough or able to perform CPR in a way to cause the depression or that crunching sound, for lack of better term. In your experience, what type of people are we talking about for that? Where you wouldn't be surprised that you may not have seen that depression or the crunching?
It's typically going to be maybe an elderly population, somebody that's not as big, not as strong, that might not be able to perform chest compressions hard enough and deep enough. Sometimes if a patient is in a bed, so mattress has give to it, compressions won't be as effective. You want to get him to the floor. Obviously, he was already on the floor, so that aids chest compressions.
Was there anything about this male that you saw when you observed him entering or exiting that made you believe that he had been injured?
No.
Based upon your training and experience and what you observed and did in this case, would you agree that the victim, Charles Vallow, was dead before you entered the house?
Yes.
Based upon your training and experience and what you observed and did in this case, would you agree that it was highly unlikely that anyone had performed CPR on Charles Vallow prior to you doing that?
Yes.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross.
You want me to go now, or it's 4:30? I didn't know if you wanted
How long do you anticipate your cross-examination?
to. It'd take a while, Your Honor.
All right, we'll break for the evening then. We'll need you back here tomorrow morning at 10:30.
10:30.
Yes. All right, we'll release the jury at this time for the evening. We'll resume tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Please remember the admonition.
All rise for the jury. Like, whose face is that? All right, are they done? I had a feeling her cross of this guy's gonna take a long time. She didn't let me down.
All right, you can be seated. You can step down if you want. Is there anything we need to discuss before recessing for the evening from the state,
No, Your Honor.
from the defense? Is there anything we need to discuss before we recess?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow at 10:30.
Adios for you. Okay, so I do plan on doing this tomorrow night. I will be home from my dad's probably around 3:30. They're not going to start until 2 our time, my time. That's not your time, Adair. That's 1 year time. So I will start late, but then we can fast forward or we can just speed it up a little bit until we get caught up. And then hopefully when they break for lunch, I can break for dinner, go eat a quick bite to eat with my other half and see him for just a minute, and then come back and do the second part like we did today. If you guys want to keep going with it, it's not been super lively. But we can. So I'll probably, if I can get the afternoon what they start. They started at 3 today and they ended at, he said 10:30. That's 1:30 our time, but they're 30-minute delay, so that's 2. So I'd be an hour and a half behind. I'm going to see if I can get the first half done before they break for lunch and then come back when they come back in the evening. If not, just like you said, maybe it'll be 5 or 5:30, Bri. Sorry, it's been a long day. And then we're going to have to, Wednesday's going to be a problem because I won't be home Wednesday night. But maybe I'll figure something out. Maybe we can just do a recap from that day unless something super exciting happens. So far, this has been a really dry day of trial watching. We saw 2 psychologists and in our first half of the day, and then this. I am ignoring you guys. Anyway, that's the plan. I will put a Discord as soon as I know. I will have my granddaughter tomorrow for maybe just a little bit during the stream. I gotta, her mom's gonna go get her hair done, but so it'll be close. She might be here for a minute, but she shouldn't be here very long. Not that you guys care. She just entertains you. Maybe call the judge. Maybe he'll hold off on Wednesday. We could only hope. I will let you know. Definitely plan on doing something tomorrow night. Hopefully we can stay caught up, and then I'll just have to worry about catching up Wednesday. So, me too, Flash fan. Me too. So, all right, that's the plan. It'll be up in Discord. So, you guys, if you're not part of Discord, you can be there for free. Our Discord is very fun. You don't have to be a member of the channel to join our Discord. There's some craziness. A little crazy. Battle Town. I can't even put that on screen. But everyone, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. We'll see you again tomorrow night and or tomorrow afternoon, whatever. But enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you guys all again later. There is a link to the Discord. Gabby just put it up. That's pretty much where all the announcements go. So, all right, with that, I'm out. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your night.